In the next 20 minutes you will listen to a cautionary tale, and by the end of it I will let you know what was the worst advice that was ever given to me. Hi, this is Victor and thank you so much for joining me today. And the worst advice that I ever got in my life is to focus and try to improve on my weaknesses. In case you want to skip this story, you are welcome to do so. I will put some timestamps in the description to the actionable phase, the phase where you find your strengths. So here's how it all started. Since I was little, I was being taught that I have to be perfect in every aspect of my life. Everything needs to be an A, everything needs to be a 10. You have to know physics, maths, all of the sciences, religion, philosophy, economics, a bit of excelling in sports, and all that on top of balancing a good social life, having friends, enjoying your life and enjoying your time while in school and high school respectively. With this mindset, I had to do my toughest decision yet, and it's been years since, but I had back then to decide what I wanted to do for uni. And I had two large choices, and that's the first mistake. When you have two choices, you don't have a choice, you have a dilemma. So the minimum amount is 3. It's great if you can find 5 good options. More than that, you're wasting your time and you're getting overwhelmed. But if you have at least 3 and at most 5 good options, then that's great. Your brain will thank you for that and you will be able to choose something. You won't have to be pigeonholed into being forced to take one option in case the other fails in the example of a dilemma, right? So again, I had only 2 choices, which is go and study business or go and study civil engineering. One was because I was inspired by some people, and the second one was because of my natural inclination towards that. And I was inspired to go into civil engineering, seeing amazing people and what they did. I was watching so many programs of great architecture, of great structures, of mega projects. Those were my favorite documentaries back then. And also trains. I have a huge passion for trains, huge crush for trains. So there was definitely some passion in there. But the other large passion of mine was business. Since I was in high school, I was thinking of starting a business, I was thinking of financials, I was thinking of banking. So that was something that I naturally gravitated. Maths was my strongest area, and probably the worst was physics. So despite all of that, I chose to pursue civil engineering. If I knew back then what I know right now, I would understand that I was naturally attracted to business. I was naturally attracted to understanding the markets and to all kinds of financial elements and financial vehicles. And I was happy to read a full economics book, but when you would put me in front of a physics book, my brain would just stop. So those were clear signs, but see, I was getting this advice. It doesn't matter if you're not great at physics. With enough resources and enough time, you will get to be better. And it turned out to be false. It turned out to be, first of all, I want to take full responsibility because that's advice that I internalized, and nobody took my hand and forced me on a certain path. No, that's all on me. But it's also a tale of hubris because I didn't know what I cannot do. I was hoping and I was stressing out to learn physics. One of my best friends during uni times, and still good friends to this day, he was learning so fast everything that was physics related, and I was wondering how he did it. And at some point he said that he can see how those forces act on those beams. I was beginning to understand, and I think I knew this from the first year, that civil engineering was not for me. And that's the reason why I switched industries. I'm not in that industry anymore. So when this dilemma first came to mind of what I wanted to do, I didn't know all of those facts. I didn't have all of those experiences. I focused on my weaknesses. My weakness in all high school was physics, and I got to get a good understanding of it, but I had no natural talent for it. So stepping back a little, time passed, I realized, hey, this is not what I wanted to do. I was stuck with it. I had to finish that uni, and then I even went to work in that industry. I worked in total of 3 years in construction, And I realized it wasn't for me. Like, this is the catch, or this is what you should take from this video. If you achieve less on a daily basis, you have fewer positive and creative moments, and you get in a rut, and then things can happen, life gets in the way, and I mean, that's kind of a good way to become miserable. So what would be the resources to find your strengths? Well, as resource zero, let's say, it's either coaching or psychotherapy. But in those cases, you still have to reflect on them. Usually, it comes in the form of a question that's being asked to you. No other person can tell what your strengths are other than yourself. I don't believe in things like strengths coaching or any of that sort. I think there are great questions asked by psychotherapists, and they allow you to go into this deeper search for what actually your strengths are. If you want to go through the other routes, the first resource is Strengthsfinder, the book. Do the exercises there, read the strengths, pick the ones that you feel most attracted to, and you have to pick, I would say, 5 of them. If you pick 5 of them, and you will stick with this number 5 for each of the resources. So even if there are 30 or 40 or 50 strengths from which you have to pick, don't go and pick 8, 9, 10, 12 and say, yeah, those are the strengths that I want. It doesn't go like that. You have to pick the ones which are the most dominant. Some of the tests actually encourage you to focus on 2 strengths, or on 3 strengths, or even on 1 core strength. Another great resource, the second one, is a personality test. And I know how this sounds, but hear me out. Is the test based on Jungian psychology, the big 5 traits test, and that can also lead you into a certain direction. You will understand which of those dimensions is the one that lead your personality. So maybe that's openness, maybe you are extremely assertive, right? So each of those 5 big traits have on their own 2, let's say, component traits. So in total you get 10 traits. And out of those 10 traits, you kind of know that if you're high in one, it means that you're low on the opposite. So in total you can kind of test for 20 different, let's say, character traits. So in case you're a disagreeable person, it means that, maybe trying to be a socialite doesn't quite fit your personality type. And obviously there is the caveat that those tests are a function of language, a function of how you feel in that moment. I don't buy the thing, and there is a lot of literature on this. There is a lot of it where it's arguing that those tests are quite accurate, but they are easily swayed by your emotional states. So if you're doing them when you're incredibly happy, you're grateful, you had everything rolling for you, you will be less disagreeable, you will be maybe more open, you will be less neurotic. And the opposite comes when you're in a state of, let's say, depression or sadness or anything like that. You will tend to perceive everything in a worse way, with a black and white filter. So it's very important to know this. So once you've done those things, the third thing that I would want to give you is the Strengthsfinder test from the Penn University. It's more like it gets okay, it's based on a research paper and you can read it, but again, there is nothing that can be said that 100% measured your strengths, but it's a great point from which you can start a discussion around your strengths. Here you have to rank things, and you will have 24 strengths. You do a test of, I think, 240 questions, and I tend to do this on a 6 to 6 months basis. I'm really interested in doing this test. It became something like a sort of running gig for me to do it, especially when I start a new journal. I do this test. I know, I just like it, and my results stay incredibly consistent. So that's very interesting because the personality doesn't change that much. And here again are inflections for strengths such as gratitude or things like that, which have or humor and playfulness, which will increase when you are obviously in a better state. But for things such as, love of learning or bravery, I mean, those things kind of stay similar for longer periods of time. And it's quite nice to see this kind of you sort of being this person with ups and downs. So I kind of have this timeline. I have done already 8 tests in the past. So basically the last 4 years are mapped using the pen test for me, and I just love it. I think it's a great resource. I will link to it as well in the description. Another resource that I think you should be interested in is journaling, and I'm not joking. You have to pick time aside. Like, that's the 4th resource, writing those things down, creating an essay. For example, you can create an essay of, let's say, one of the things that drives you is reading. Maybe you have something for learning. You love learning. You have a love of learning. You can create an essay of what's learning for me? What does it mean for me? Why is it important? And you can ask so many questions. Here, a psychotherapist might be also useful, but you can do this on your own. Everything you can do on your own. But then again, all the results that you will get to are completely subjective. The 5th thing is you could ask somebody. You could ask people what your strengths are, and they will tell you, especially if they're close to you, and they'll try to be as objective as possible. If you go around and ask in a very nice, polite manner, all the deal. But that's a great resource, and you should definitely keep that in mind. Maybe if you want to, give them a list of 20 or 30 things, and they have to pick just 5 of them. And you will see which one they will pick. That's incredibly fun. I've done this, and I was amazed. I was amazed how I'm perceived by other people. And it's incredibly important to also have this kind of change of perspective, okay? The 6th resource will be, and that's very general, books on the subject, and they can be like, find your why, find your focus, find your purpose, any books on purpose, on strengths, any of that sort. I recommended the book Getting Unstuck in my last few videos. I still recommend it for that. It's good for strengths. There is another great article that allows you to see your strengths in terms of your career choices, and you can search for that on Tim's blog. Tim is a great guy who had a talk on how to be a master procrastinator, Tim Urban. So if you search Tim's blog, you might find that article as well. It's something with the octopi of career choices and whatnot. Great resource, great article, go for it. And I think that's a great point to start. I mean, if you're doing all of those, you will start to see patterns, and that will be the 7th and last thing, which is crossing everything and action on those. Because, okay, fine, you, let's say, have 5 strengths from one test, 5 strengths from another 5 from another, and you get like 7 or 8 batches of 5 strengths, and they're useless on their own. They're just BuzzFeed type of tests. I mean, they don't serve you in any way unless you do something with them, and you can find commonalities, you can find themes, and it doesn't have to be that you will end up with 5 strengths. Because, again, let's suppose you have 6 sets of 5 strengths, and in those 6 sets, each time you have creativity as one of those strengths, and each time you have love of learning as one of those strengths. But sometimes you have being a sociable person as one of the strengths, but most of the times you don't. Maybe out of those sets you have it only twice, and it's usually ranked the 4th or the 5th or even the 3rd. So let's say in one it's the 5th and in one it's the 3rd. Obviously, that's not gonna be one of your top strengths. After you do this whole thing, you see which one out of 6 sets or out of 4 sets or whatever, it has to be at least I would say 2/3. So if it's in more than 2/3 of your sets of 5, then it definitely is one of your strengths. And what you will find out that you will probably be left with less than 5 at the end of it. I know that was my case. I know you will find a way on your own if you are going through all of this. If you have reached the 7th step, then my god, you don't need my advice. You don't need anything that I'm talking about right now. You already know, you already came to a conclusion. So this, as things are in life, is most about the journey. It's not necessarily about the destination, because on this journey of your self-discovery, you will inherently begin to gravitate more towards certain strengths, and you will know. So on that, I want to end